Morning, welcome back to Alan's Allotment. So I was right from the last video. These batteries were absolutely shot with the cold weather. I took out all of the plugs. The battery levels were low, so I've topped them up with distilled water, or rather with deionized water. Now I've put this battery back on this one here, and during the glow plug heating and the priming of the pump, this battery was dropping down to about 10.4 and sometimes 10 volts. As you can see now, it's holding nice and steady at 11.4, 11 up to 11.6 even. And the minute that glow plug goes out on the right hand side, this will probably shoot right back up to 12 point something. But the battery was exhausted. It was down to holding only 9 volts across the entire battery. So I'm doing another little test here, request for Terry King, and I discovered there's a little marker on the side. I'm not sure how well you... Anyways, down here there's an oil level that shows you how much diesel you've got in it. And I discovered when I took the top off, you can actually get lots more in besides that. So what I've done is I've actually topped this diesel heater right up to the top now, and is wanting to get an approximation of cost. So this tank holds, give or take a little bit, 5 litres. I put a full 5 litres of diesel in here, and I'm not sure if you can see that now, but it's lit. The glow plug's out and we're back up to 12.3. Right, so this is one of the little experiments, and we're just going to have a little play basically. Here I have a battery bank, a rechargeable battery bank, and here I have an amp meter that measures the current being drawn from the battery bank to the device you're powering. And what I've got here are some grow lights, and they come as 2 strips. It's 1 unit, if you will. It's actually separate, so you can put one on one side of your propagator and one on the other. And it comes with a little on-off power button. You can change the levels of the brightness, and there's even a timer built into it. But I'll need to read the instructions to find out how the timer side of it works. When you first plug this in, we got this illuminated, but it sees nothing's being pulled, and it puts itself to sleep and saves the battery bank as well. So what you have to do is to get it started again, you just simply remove it, and then pop it back in until you get the display, and now we're ready to go. We power up, and here you can probably see the LED lights are lit. They're much brighter than what it possibly looks on the camera, and that's the lowest setting. Now on the lowest setting, this tells me that that is only pulling 0.2 of an amp out of this battery bank, as you can see. The brighter we make it, the more power we will use. So we'll take it to its second setting. And we're now using just over half an amp, 0.56. And now we'll take it up to the highest setting. And I'm not sure how well that's coming out on the camera, but these are really bright. And we're now using 0.8. Actually, that's not the highest setting, I don't think. Let me check again. That's just still under 1 amp. See if there is another. There's another brightness level. That's them on full brightness now. and on that level they are still only drawing just over 1 amp out of this battery bank. So we'll have to run a little test just to see how long we get out of this, how many hours they will run on the 3 different power levels on one of these, because I have a number of these, and if it turns out to be pretty poor, then we can put a USB device to one of the big 12 volt car batteries and run it from that, and we'll get, well, I think the smallest one I have is 40 amps. So straight away, the quick calculation, that's telling me I'm going to get 40 hours out of a big 12 volt battery or thereabouts. Obviously there's losses as well, so yeah. But I want to see just how well this handles it on the lowest setting. So we're going to drop the power back down again now to the lowest setting, and bearing in mind when these are on, they will be only in a little shallow tray here, and the lower setting may be sufficient for seedlings. So it's just a little idea I'm playing with. I've also got a battery operated heat mat to go under the trays, and we have these amp meters we can do checks with to see what current we're drawing and what size battery roughly we would need. But I've got hundreds of different batteries, and for that matter, on the solar charge controllers, this will only work, of course, you have USB outs as well, so permanently connected to a solar panel. These are independent, so we can use these low voltage lights and heat mat direct out of these USB ports here. This is actually just sitting in here charging this little battery here. It was completely dead, but it's got it almost 3/4 full again, and that's just off this one here that's sitting here. So we'll know when the battery is getting rather tired because the voltage will alter on here. But also on this particular one, it has LEDs on the back, and as the battery drains, it goes down 1/4, half, 3/4 until it's empty. So I'm just going to leave that running basically and see how long and how well this battery does and how much power we use out of it in that lowest setting. Right, good morning and welcome back. Right, so it's now 11:15, so that diesel heat has been on approximately 20 minutes. I'm just looking at the temperature gauge in here now. It's on this very, very, very lowest setting. You can maybe just hear it ticking away in the background. And we've already up to 12.5 degrees from 9 or whatever it was. That's just in 20 minutes on its very, very lowest setting. Of course, you can crank the temperature up, get it to the temperature you want, and then drop it to the lowest setting and just leave it ticking over to maintain the temperature. So Terry King had asked me to actually do a little test in a way to say what's the approximate costs. I think he's thinking of getting himself one for his greenhouse, and I did mention in one of my other videos that the secondary one that I got, I'm having a similar idea myself. And that particular one, when I get it working, I need to test it today with a good battery. I'm pretty sure it was the batteries that was causing most of the problems, but I've got it apart just in case I need to make any modifications to it. But that one there also has a timer. I just need to try and be able to understand the manual. Yeah, it's rather difficult, even just trying to pair with the remote. It tells you how to do it, but the steps are all back to front, and I still haven't managed to pair the remote, but I will work it out. And it's a slightly different display to that one, so I'm not sure how I'm going to work it out, but I will. Now then, so today I'm going to go back over there and try and get that fired up. But I just thought I'd show you that little experiment and one of the little ideas I'm playing around with. well, two actually, because one I'm showing you, and two is I've got some heated mats as well. But you have to put it's like a vivarium 12 volt mat basically. I don't know what amperage it draws. We'll use the little meter to tell us, and then we can work out what sort of size batteries we would need. If I decide to go down this route, I'm basically just playing, okay? But somebody might find it interesting and think, oh, well, I wouldn't mind having a go at that. And if I can remember, I'll leave you some links in the description down below to each of these items, with the exception of the battery packs, because you know the USB battery packs, the universal. Go and get your best bang for buck and find one on Amazon. But yeah, so I'm going to just play about trying to make up a heated propagator with grow lights just to get them started till they're about that big, and then leave them to their own devices. I just want to see, and I'm going to do a test side by side with seeds sown at exactly the same time, no heat mat and no grow lights, and one with the heat mat and grow lights. But these little heat mats, apparently if you put them in like a pillowcase and you wrap them, is how you get the most heat out of them. So this is another experiment that's coming up, and when we come to do this, we'll obviously video it for you and show you the results. So yeah, I'm just going to have my cup of coffee, and then I'm going to take a brand spanking new 12 volt battery over to the garage, which I managed to acquire at a very good price, and we're going to test that diesel heater again. And I have another idea for that diesel heater about getting hot water from it as well. Right, I'm just starting to unload the car. We have another 14 bags of compost, which should be sufficient now to finish off those strawberry beds we done last week, and do any top dressing of any other beds it needs a little bit. And one of my subscribers had asked me what they call this compost out of Home Bargains, and it's basically, it's Gromo, and I think it's £3.49 a bag. It's only 40 litres, but I've used this in the past. Now I'm not saying, I'm not an advocate for this. I'm not saying that this is the best compost you can buy. It's cheap and cheerful, but what I can tell you is I've used it in the past and I get relatively good results. So we'll get this over into the growing area and come back and get the rest. Right, I'm not entirely sure what the hell is going on here, guys, but you can clearly see this is not burning right, in spite of it was before. I can hear the machine running down now. This machine is definitely nowhere near as good or reliable as the last one. Yeah, it's just shutting itself down. Yeah, I'll need to investigate it. It's come up with the error code this time of E08. And having a quick look in the manual, it says there's a couple of possibilities. One is the quality of oil, but it's a brand new tanker diesel. One is it's not getting enough oil, i.e. an air bubble, and that the flame is extinguished. Now why this would keep happening I don't know, because the battery is brand spanking new, and I don't have this problem with the other diesel heater. But it also says about the air intake could be blocked, or the exhaust. Now, it's a brand new exhaust and a brand new air intake. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off that intake hose that was making a bit of a noise before. And somehow, I don't know, I don't think it's blocked. But I'm going to leave the air intake to the machine just as is, without any hose attached, and see if I get a different result. 15:30. And you can see these lights are still going. I've actually just turned them down. The mice will be shining in there. Still holding out well, and still haven't even used a quarter of a battery. So I'm going to say I'm not going to leave this running overnight, basically. Well, I suppose I could. Yeah, I could. What we'll do is we'll just sit that up there. I'll set the battery bank in there. Yeah. Spread the light out a little bit on there. I know it's got to be on the inside of the cabinet, but I'm opening these vents a little bit as well because I've got a little bit of germination in there. Nothing in the small Charles Dowding trays with the onions in that, but these are the turnips, and cauliflowers starting to come through now. They're just poking their heads, and there's been no heat on these or anything, so yeah. Right, I'll give you the crack when I get back in and get the cup of coffee made. So we lost our old dog on Monday, just gone. We had 2 dogs, and she passed away at home in the living room on Monday morning, and Echo is bedded here, and I bedded Molly on Monday. So a big miss. We had the dogs a long time, but she just died of natural causes, so that I'm pleased that she just lived a full life. So it's 18 degrees in here now, and it's almost 3:30. So that diesel heater now has been running since 11 o'clock. So it's been running 4.5 hours, just over 4.5 hours. I'm going to turn it up to full tilt now, because to turn it off you want to get the chamber up to temperature and then burn off the excess and let it cool down. Right, I'm a little bit disappointed. I think this diesel heater is going to be going back. Not the one behind me, that's been faultless. It worked out of the box and it's never faltered. Touch wood. It just starts when I want it, it throws out loads of heat, no smell of burning, no clunking and clanking. I went over and the diesel heater was still running, and as you've seen it had got the temperature up. But very shortly after that, after I'd done that little clip, I could smell diesel and smoke and fumes. And all of a sudden I looked out the window and I could see smoke coming from round the back of the garage. And basically it had flamed out and it was throwing all these horrible fumes out of the exhaust again. Now this is only twice I've tried to use this diesel heater, and twice it's flamed out on me, and twice it's fired out all this smoke. Then it just ran itself down. So I thought, okay, we'll just give it the benefit of the doubt, and I fired it up one more time and it wouldn't even ignite. I could smell the fumes again, and it started pouring smoke out again. I've knocked it off, it's going back. Brand new out of the box, and it just does not work. Absolutely does not work. I actually thought, you know, I'll give anything the benefit of the doubt, and I actually thought, okay, it was a bit of an air bubble in the fuel line. It's just doesn't appear to be a very good design to me. And one thing for certain, especially with the price of them these days, it's going back. If I'm going to get one, I want one that's suitable for needs, and that's not as described. It's also not 8 kilowatts either. I'm convinced that does not put out 8 kilowatts of heat. So it's probably a little bit noisier behind me now because I'm running this one up to temperature. And what I want to do, Teddy, is make a note of the hours run time on this on low temperature. I obviously have to bring it up to temperature to cool it down, if that makes sense. But that's only for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then I can knock it off and let it cool down. And I'll write all of the hours down, and then we'll add it up and see roughly what we get on that 5 litre tank. And then you can do your calculations, mate. Now you can put these into an alpine mode. Some of these do have an alpine mode, and this one may even have it. I've just never went down to that level. But if you put them into alpine mode as well, apparently once you've got them running, you can get it at the low setting now, and then there's a combination of buttons you can press, and you can put it into alpine mode, and it uses half the fuel again of low setting. So it's worth investigating. I'm not sure if mine do, because I just haven't investigated it, and other things to do basically. but I may do. But I'm led to believe that most of these diesel heaters can be put into Alpine mode if you find the setting for the controller. And there's different types of controllers for these, and there are some YouTube videos out there with people who are smarter than me that say with this particular model of panel, if you press this combination of buttons, etc., you can get into Alpine mode, and they'll show you how to do it. And if your machine is capable of doing that, give it a whirl. You'll find the benefits, especially if you're going to be like leaving this running quite a long time in a greenhouse, for instance. The least fuel it can use, and the longer the burn you can get, and the more you're only keeping the chill off your greenhouse, it'll be beneficial. I think it is anyway, but that's just my personal opinion. It's just what I think. Right, I'm having my last cup of coffee. It's getting dark already, and as I say, it's only just after 3:30. I've enjoyed my little play as usual. I'm going to leave them lights running overnight, see if they're still on in the morning, see what sort of battery power we've used just on this little battery bank. And I'm going to do a similar test with the heat mats on a little bit battery bank. And then we can gauge just how long we get out of them, and then we can, if we need to, the heater I'm going to assume will draw a bit more because you're heating something. But maybe in a combination between a battery bank for the lights and a 12 volt car battery to run the heater, you get the idea. I'm playing with stuff, and if you want to see how we get on with these experiments, then don't forget to subscribe and follow along. I'm going to have a cup of coffee and I'm going to shut up babbling. As always guys, wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be practical, and keep yourselves out of harm's way. Thanks again for all your likes, dislikes, comments, subscriptions, and of course your donations. It's gratefully received. Thanks for following me along. Have a great day, and I'll see you again in the next video.